You can always do more and better work in your job or your business. And here is how to make this happen. In this video, I will talk about the 5 steps for continuous business developments. This is a continuous framework for how you can continually improve your business, the processes within your business, and continually make sure that you're always improving, always progressing, always developing the process and the tasks involved in your business. So I want to start this off by saying that stating the obvious. Okay, we have limited time to work. We have limited. Uh, we want to make the most out of the little time we have. Naturally, we especially when we're doing our own business, or we want to get back our time. We want our time back, and in that case, that makes it even more important to make the most out of our work. We want the most amount of results from least amount of time, least amount of resources, and that's what we're aiming for. Making the most out of the inputs to get the most results. Get the most results possible from least amount of input. So yeah, here I'm going to share a framework for 5 steps. The framework is based on some premises here. I want to share first, what is required to follow this framework. So here are the 4 requirements for the kind of mindset you need to have when you apply this continuous business development framework in practice. So you want to reduce the time and resource consumption on your processes, as long as this does not negatively affect the results. You want more output from less inputs. Okay, that's fair. You want to use the saved time and resources to expand and create added value for customers and the company itself. So in other words, you don't just want to save costs and reduce the amount, the cost out of your business. You also want to reinvest those. That's another criteria for this business development framework to work. The third, we're willing to spend time and resources on continuous business developments now to save time and resources in the long run. So you're going to want to you have to think in the long term about this. Okay, in the short term, you may need to invest extra time, extra resources on actually experimenting and making and trying things out before you actually get the results from this. This saves time, resources, or get earning or increasing the revenue from the long term. So you need to have this long term mindset of be willing to have take some extra risk in the short term to get extra better results in the long term. And similarly, with the 4th criteria, it's we're willing to accept the risk of errors and cost from experimenting with new methods before arriving at the right solutions for us. In other words, you're willing to spend a bit of time and resources on the research and development, experiment a bit, and focus on the long-term benefits from that in order to actually get the results in the long term. So with those requirements in mind, if this is something that you or and your business are willing to accept, this is the right approach to actually continually develop your business for long-term growth. So the 5 steps are as follow. It's to document your processes, it's to simplify and optimize your processes, it's to standardize them, to automate, and then expand and create value. So here I'll explain my reasoning for these 5 steps and what it actually means in practice, why I've chosen these in particular for continual growth. So first of all, it's the documentation part. Okay, why do we need to document? Why do we need to document our processes? Why can't we just continue to do them and just have it all in your head? Okay, you may have a great memory, but some of the challenges and difficulties involved here with just having it in your head or in the head of your employees, there are several risks and disadvantages with this in long term. First of all, it's the inconsistent practice, inconsistent application of the tasks. So even though you the more you do it, the more you learn the benefits, or the right ways to do it, the things that work better than others. But if you don't document what you find out on the way, so to speak, then it's very easy to forget. It's very easy to do it differently time for time, and these inconsistent practices can easily lead to errors or lead to misunderstandings, especially if you're communicating between departments, communicate between other people in your business. And yeah, generally it leads to lower efficiency, higher risk of errors in the long term. It's also the case if you're getting new employees into the business. That becomes a lot more time consuming when you're trying to scale, when you need to teach them completely from the bottom up. You don't have any resources to show them, which documents and shows them how these tasks are done. Then you need to do the entire onboarding and training from the bottom up, instead of getting the simple start with having some documentation, which saves you a lot of time, which teaches them the basics, and then you can guide them based on questions and concerns they have based on the documentation there. So, in addition, when your employees actually leave the company, then okay, does that mean that the knowledge and experience that they have all get lost? Or it's very limited how much you can get out of the offboarding process. You even it takes a lot of it can take a lot of time when offboarding with someone are leaving a job, and yeah, it takes a lot of meetings to actually transfer that knowledge to other people, and it easily leads to just yeah risks of some insights getting lost if this isn't documented. So yeah, and last of all, it becomes much harder to identify opportunities for improvements for these processes, improvements for these tasks. So when you have actually documented, when you kind of laid out how are these processes being done right now, it's much easier to identify what are the opportunities for improvements here, what can be developed further here of these, how can we save time, save costs with these processes, and develop something further from it. You get a lot better overview when it's actually documented down in practice. And there are several ways to document it. You can either do it through standardized documents, for procedural documents, for basically you can start with something as simple as basically just numbered lists with steps for the steps involved in the tasks, and then maybe if you want or see it relevant, you can expand with more context and ideas based on what is relevant to include, based on who are going to use these procedural documents. But yeah, the important part is at least that you document it in some way, that you get somewhat of an overview of how is this process being done right now, and yeah, making sure that you can get the most amount of value and consistency in continuing with these processes for building the business forward. Another alternative is to use videos. I've in previous a previous job, I used a lot of videos for recording myself doing the task and business process first, and then you just need to do it one time. You can explain your steps on the way, explain the context during the video, and then okay, you have it recorded, and then you can save it for yourself or other people on the team to continue with it from there. So based on that, building up on the documentation, okay, we go to the second step, which is to simplify and optimize your processes. So it's first when the business processes are actually documented, it's much easier to actually see and identify how can we simplify this, how can we make this easier, how can we optimize this, and yeah, it becomes much easier to find opportunities and alternatives for improving. And here is where the lean mindset comes in. Okay, is there task, or is there parts of this process or parts of this task that is unnecessary, doesn't create any value, doesn't really help with, we've just kind of ended up in this way somehow for some reason, we don't really know why we're doing this, but being a bit more critical in this step for, okay, why are we doing the steps that we're doing here, and is this really necessary? Can we reduce the time spent here? Can we make this simpler, based on, okay, what are the value we're actually getting from this process? What are the value we're getting from each step here? And is it possible to make something here better? So yeah, here I would advise to focus on the steps of the process that are most time and resource consuming. So you can, yeah, there usually there's most potential for saving in the steps that take the most amount of manual time and the most amount of resources. So here you can be especially critical to those. Okay, is it possible to do these steps any better, more efficiently, and in a better way with higher quality? And there it's possible to get the most advantage, and then you can go down from there. That's how you can prioritize. You can use this Pareto principle with the 80-20 principle. Okay, what is the 20% of the work involved here that are taking up 80% of the value, and is it possible to cut down some of the other 80% here, for instance? um, and yeah, so yeah, so we can go on from there. It's just when this part is completed that we have identified, yeah, we can consider this steps done for the process under evaluation, and then we go from there to the next step, which is standardization. So standardization basically means that we want to make sure that the process is done in the same way, or similar, at least a very similar way, time after time, so that there isn't much inconsistency between the different times this process is being done, especially if it's a repeating task that don't really have much difference in the pattern that's each time this is being done. So having some standards, um, having some kind of framework for, okay, this is how this process is to be done. And this the reason this step is after the simplification and optimization step is to make sure that it is the simplified and optimized version of the process that will be done from here on out in the future. So yeah, and there are several reasons to do this. There are higher predictability in how the tasks are performed, higher quality based on the simplified and optimized version we've done, and it's much easier to implement new cool technologies like automation, AI, saving time and money, and so on when you've actually standardized this. So so how what does this mean in practice with the standardization, you may ask? And the some of the parts that can be standardized here is, if especially if you're managing data, if you're dealing with data in some way, shape, or form here, it may be relevant to see, okay, how can we standardize, for instance, the structure, the formatting of the data before we actually start the manual processing. So it may be the way that some data you're getting from a supplier or a customer or something is possible to make this more standardized, to make it the same, or in the same pattern or structure for each time we're getting this type of report or type of framework that we're doing some kind of process with. And then for each of the manual steps, what people manually need to do during the process. Okay, what are the steps? How do we do these steps? That's something that can be standardized as well. And then the data structure after the processing. What kind of result? If it's a report, if it's a data file, something you're putting into the database, whatever. It's making sure that it's the same time after time, so that it's actually possible to use this on a more aggregate level when you're doing these processes time after time. Then it's much easier to do the cool things later, and to become more data driven. So based on these step 1 to 3, then we can go on to the fourth step, which is automation. So this is the fun part, where we can look at, okay, how can we do the manual steps in a more automatic way? Are there alternatives for actually doing these tasks in an automatic way? Can we use some automation tools for doing these processes? And then you can find the right type of automate software, like low code software maybe, or coding something based on completely on the details of the process and what the alternatives, what the best options are for your situation, and then you can find out the right answers from there. So but here we also need to make sure that automation alternatives also operate based on the quality standards that we have for these processes. We want to make sure that it doesn't negatively affect the quality. We want to make sure that it doesn't involve any extra risk. For instance, if you use these types of automation alternatives for something like financial information that will go through external audits, then of course this needs to be made sure there's some kind of reliability, okay, making sure that these automation can be controlled and verified in some way. And this is where the lean Japanese lean concept of the jidoka plays an important role. And this means automation with a human touch, in a sense. So you, before we go right ahead with starting the fun part with automation stuff, we must map out, okay, what are the risks, what are the things we need to verify, what are the things we need to control and check when we do it in an automatic way, how can we make sure that this automation is completed, has done the work properly, treated the data properly, and making sure that it isn't any and minimize the risks involved in this. So we need to map out, okay, how can we do this in a good way, and have this combination between, okay, applying the technology we have for making this process automatic, but also leaving some human component for the verification in a good way to ensure the quality we're looking for. So that's that's the main issue here. Okay, we need to answer the question, okay, how can we use the technology to do exactly the same steps that we did before manually, now with automatic? This is why we need documentation first. Okay, we need to understand the process we're working with. Then we from there need to actually work down with, okay, simplifying, optimizing the process, and then we can go on to standardize it. And when we have done those steps, that is much easier to automate it. Because if we try to automate it right away, even before, like, we've even documented it, okay, that's completely hopeless, because we at that point we don't really understand the process. We haven't really mapped out what is actually involved in this process, and then it makes so much extra work with actually trying to automate this. So you need to document it first, you need to simplify it, and then when you have simplified it and improved it, optimized it, and standardized it, then it makes the process with automating it so much easier. I can promise you that. Yeah, and then you choose the technology based on the steps updated from the simplification and standardization. So yeah, and it's here the benefit starts to really show, is when you have standardized, optimized, and simplified, and then partly automated the process. Then you can take these resources, saved costs and resources, and then look at, okay, how can we expand, how can we create more value from these processes. Okay, now you've saved a bit, okay, now you can use that money to reinvest in yourself. You can look at, okay, can we scale in some way, can we do something extra with this time we have saved from this, is there more we can add on to this process that will create extra value for us, something more we can do for our customers, more we can do for our clients, more extra kind of partnerships or something that could make the collaboration between with our suppliers simpler, or something. And yeah, there are many ways you can expand and create value from such process. For instance, okay, explore opportunities to do more and better analysis of the results from the process to extract practical insights. Okay, become more data driven in practice. Consider strategic alternatives for expanding the role, the department to new tasks and projects. You can consider new campaigns to strengthen marketing and sales to attract more customers, and so on. There are so many alternatives, but yeah, you get the point. Okay, you save more from your calls, you save more time, and then you just need to figure out, okay, how can we use this time and resources in a better way. So, and again, this go back to uh, why this is a continuous process. This is modeled as a circle because this continues over and over and over again. Okay, when we expand and create more value, we expand, add additional parts of the process, or add something extra that can create more value. Then the process becomes bigger, and then you have to document it from there, and you have to standardize, you have to simplify and optimize, and then you look at automation, and then you can expand from there. So it really doesn't stop. This is a continuous process of business development, and it really only depends on how far you want to go with it, and how much you want to get the benefits from this type of framework. So so yeah, that's really it for how this that's been the 5 steps for the continuous business development, the framework I've made from that based on my own experience with both working in a big business and I'm starting my own business. So I hope this has been of help to you. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this framework. If you have any disagreements or agreements or anything more you want to say about these ideas. Let me know in the comments below. As always, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'm going to share more of this framework on the YouTube channel, and my LinkedIn, on Twitter, and so on forward. So make sure to follow all those places, and yeah, have a great week, guys, and I will see you all very, very soon.